Matthew Broderick's journey is not the loud, explosive kind that screams for attention. It is the steady, intelligent rise of a man who understood timing, discipline, and quiet confidence in an industry obsessed with noise, and that is exactly what makes his story powerful. Because from the very beginning, he was not trying to become a spectacle, he was becoming a craftsman. Born into a family already touched by the arts, with his father James Broderick being an established actor, Matthew grew up understanding that acting was not just fame or flashing lights, but dedication, rehearsal, and respect for the craft. And while many young performers burn bright and fade fast, Matthew chose consistency over chaos, preparation over impulse, and character over controversy, stepping into the world of theater before Hollywood truly knew his name, proving himself on stage where there are no second takes, no edits, no safety nets, only raw performance and truth. And that foundation shaped everything that followed, because when he arrived in film, he was not chasing celebrity, he was delivering performance. And then came the role that would define a generation, Ferris Bueller in Ferris Bueller's Day. Off, a character so effortlessly charming, rebellious yet harmless, confident yet playful, that it cemented Matthew Broderick as the face of smart, witty youth in the 1980s. But what many people overlook is that the performance looked easy because of immense discipline underneath. Comedic timing is a science, and Matthew mastered it with precision, knowing exactly when to pause, when to smile, when to break the fourth wall, and that level of awareness is not accidental. It is earned through years of study and stage experience. And while Hollywood celebrated the cool grin and relaxed energy, Matthew continued building quietly, refusing to let one role trap him in a single identity. Moving from teen icon to a serious actor without dramatic reinvention, but instead through steady choices, choosing projects that stretched him rather than simply protected his popularity. And in a world where actors often become prisoners of their biggest hits, Matthew demonstrated something rare: adaptability without desperation, longevity without scandal, evolution without losing authenticity. And that is why his career spans decades while many of his peers became footnotes. Because true success is not one moment, it is sustained relevance. And Matthew understood that early, returning to Broadway repeatedly, balancing film and theater in a way that kept his skills sharp and his ego grounded, earning Tony Awards and critical respect that reminded the industry he was more than a cinematic heartthrob. He was a performer with range and depth, capable of comedy, drama, voice acting, and stage performance with equal confidence. And when he voiced adult Simba in The Lion King, his voice carried a generation into maturity, proving once again that subtle strength can be more impactful than dramatic intensity. And throughout it all, he maintained a reputation of professionalism, arriving prepared, delivering consistently, respecting colleagues, never chasing headlines, never manufacturing controversy, building instead a career based on reliability and quiet excellence. And that kind of steadiness is rare in Hollywood, where chaos often overshadows talent. Yet Matthew Broderick became an example of sustainable success, showing that fame does not need to be explosive to be powerful. It can be intelligent, controlled, and long-lasting and beyond the roles. His personal life reflected similar stability, forming a long-standing marriage with Sarah Jessica Parker, navigating public attention with grace rather than spectacle, demonstrating that maturity can coexist with celebrity, that private strength can outlast public noise. And as decades passed, he transitioned naturally into character roles, into supporting performances that enriched films rather than dominating them, proving that ego never controlled his decisions. Only love for performance did. And this is what makes Matthew Broderick's story inspiring in a deeper way, because it is not about overnight transformation or dramatic redemption arcs. It is about patience, discipline, and understanding your strengths so clearly that the industry adjusts around you rather than you bending desperately to it. And in every era, he adapted to new audiences, new platforms, new storytelling styles, remaining relevant without losing identity, showing younger actors that career longevity is built on humility and consistency, not viral fame. And in a time when attention spans are short and trends change daily, his multi-decade presence stands as proof that grounded talent always survives. and that the quiet path can sometimes travel farther than the loud one. And his legacy continues not through flashy headlines, but through timeless performances that still feel fresh decades later, performances that remind viewers that charm does not have to shout, intelligence does not have to intimidate, and confidence does not have to dominate, because sometimes the most powerful presence in the room is the one that does not demand it. And Matthew Broderick embodies that truth fully, becoming not just a star of the 80s, not just a Broadway talent, not just a familiar Hollywood face, but a symbol of sustained excellence, of smart choices, of artistic balance, and of a career built brick by brick rather than by accident. And that steady construction of success is what makes his journey worth studying, worth admiring, and worth remembering long after trends fade and new faces arrive, because timeless careers are not built on hype, they are built on craft, and Matthew Broderick mastered that craft with patience, intelligence, and quiet determination. As the years unfolded and the industry transformed around him with faster edits, louder performances, bigger franchises, and ever-shifting audience tastes, Matthew Broderick remained something increasingly rare in modern entertainment, steady, composed, and quietly strategic, and that steadiness became his true competitive advantage. Because while others chased reinvention through shock value or dramatic image shifts, he refined instead of replaced, sharpened instead of shouted, and this discipline allowed him to move through decades without feeling outdated. Because he never belonged to just one era, he belonged to the craft itself, and that difference matters. Because trends expire but craft endures, and as Hollywood entered the 1990s and 2000s with darker tones and more aggressive storytelling styles, he subtly leaned into character depth, accepting roles that carried nuance rather than surface-level charm, allowing audiences to see him not merely as Ferris Bueller frozen in time, but as a mature performer capable of complexity. And it takes confidence to step away from the shadow of an iconic role, because nostalgia can become both a gift and a cage. Yet Matthew never appeared trapped by his early success. He respected it without being defined by it, and that emotional maturity is part of why his reputation within the industry has remained strong for so long. Because directors value reliability, co-stars value professionalism, and audiences value authenticity, and he consistently delivered all three, returning again and again to Broadway, not as a side hobby, but as a serious artistic commitment, strengthening his range, embracing live performance challenges, reminding himself that acting is not about applause but about connection. And this return to roots prevented complacency, because the stage humbles even the most famous names. It demands presence, timing, stamina, and vulnerability every single night, and Matthew chose that challenge repeatedly, reinforcing the idea that true longevity is fueled by continuous sharpening of skill rather than resting on legacy. And while some actors chase blockbuster dominance, he balanced commercial appeal with artistic integrity, appearing in projects that allowed experimentation and subtle humor rather than predictable repetition. And in doing so, he demonstrated something incredibly powerful for anyone studying sustained success. He never tried to be everything, he focused on being excellent within his lane. And that clarity protected his career from burnout and overexposure, because scarcity can sometimes strengthen presence, and when he appeared on screen, there was familiarity without fatigue, warmth without oversaturation, and over time audiences grew with him rather than outgrowing him, which is one of the most difficult achievements in entertainment. Because generational shifts often replace rather than retain, yet Matthew bridged those shifts, connecting viewers who first saw him in the 80s with younger audiences discovering him through animation, theater, or modern television appearances. And beyond performance itself, there is a deeper lesson in his path, one about composure under public scrutiny, because celebrity life is rarely smooth, and maintaining dignity across decades requires restraint, perspective, and emotional discipline. And through personal challenges and public attention, he consistently returned to work rather than headlines, choosing output over noise, creation over commentary, and that focus allowed his talent to speak louder than distraction, reinforcing the truth that consistency often outperforms intensity in the long run. And as the digital era reshaped Hollywood with social media pressure and instant commentary cycles, his grounded demeanor stood in contrast to constant online validation culture, proving that a career can thrive without constant self-promotion, that credibility can still be built through performance rather than performance marketing. And this distinction is becoming increasingly powerful as audiences grow tired of artificial personas.